Welcome to this information session for prospective students of MSc Management at Brunel Business School. I'm very pleased to be joined today by the course director for the programme, Dr. Graham Fallon, who will be talking to us in some detail about the structure and themes of the degree, its pathway options, as well as the work placement opportunity. Welcome, Graham.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Would you like to take us through what students can look forward to on the programme?
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this session. What we're going to be doing is basically to take you through, first of all, an overview of the MSc Management programme, and then drill down into a little bit of detail concerning, in particular, the module structure, the alternative pathways between which you can choose, and also the placement, which I must stress is not obligatory, but it's an optional element for students who feel that they want to enhance their degree experience by also sampling life in business and by attempting to build a bridge between the two with our support. So as we can see, basically the school is located within, the course is located within Brunel Business School, which actually won an award for Outstanding Business School fairly recently in 2013. It is now accredited by the AACSB, which is a prestigious accreditation in that a very, very small proportion of the world's business schools, less than 5%, actually share this accreditation. It's accreditation by the AMBA, and again, it has been so accredited now for 16 or 17 years, which is an achievement in itself. Everybody at Brunel Business School, including yourselves, if you decide to apply for this particular programme, share access to a very, very well regarded gold star standard business life programme, which again attempts to provide support for students in terms of using their degree experience as a vehicle for successful future employability. And there's a great deal of contact business speakers, factory visits, and also technical and personal skills training offered to students through that programme. Finally, the issue of research integrity, which means in practical terms, everybody you work with in the classroom, all our professors, all our lecturers, are actually active researchers. So the material that they'll be bringing into the classroom is not only based on book reading, but is also based on the findings from their own active and ongoing research programs. So that's the school background. As far as the degree course is concerned, the Brunel MSc Management programme offers a number of attributes which we hope you'll find attractive. First of all, moving on from what I just said about business life, there's a very strong emphasis on developing your employability and career development skills. One of the ways in which we do that is through the optional placement, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail later on. Then we offer not only the general MSc Management programme, but also distinctive mini pathways within that programme, so that if you think that in future, rather than becoming a general manager, you're more interested, for example, in the marketing sphere, then we have a marketing and branding pathway. Ditto for technology and innovation, ditto for technology and entrepreneurship as well. We offer UK commercial visits, and basically in the past those visits have taken student parties to Silverstone, the home of UK Formula One motor racing, and if you're interested in that, you'll know that the British Grand Prix is going to take place in the very near future. To Jaguar Land Rover's factory in the West Midlands, to BMW Mini in Oxford, and to various City of London institutions, including, for example, Lloyd's of London and the London International Financial Futures Exchange, the so-called LIFE. We offer an optional 14-week placement, which comes after the 2 taught terms of the course are finished, and can take place either before or after the dissertation is undertaken, but more of that later. We have a picture there of Brunel's campus. One of the things to mention to you is that we are a campus-based university, as you can see from the picture, not that far from Denham and the edge of London, going into South Buckinghamshire, but also on a greenfield site. And we pride ourselves not only on the attractive environment, but also the safe environment that we offer for students of all ages and aspirations, including, as you can see, quite a lot of residential accommodation on campus, much of which is dedicated exclusively to the use of postgraduate students. So if you were to consider joining this course and were to consider living on campus, you would find yourself not surrounded by 18-year-olds who might be fresh out of school, but rather amongst a more mature group of people who might want the kind of lifestyle that might be in your mind too. So, drilling down a little bit, I've already mentioned that the MSc in Management offers the general pathway plus 3 specialist pathways, and I'll be talking you through the detailed module structure in a minute. I've also mentioned the optional 14-week placement, but I think of importance to many people is the question, how long am I out of paid employment? For those who see the course straight through, it's 1 year full time. So if you begin your studies in September 2017, then you'd complete your studies with the submission of your dissertation in September 2018. If you wanted to add a 14-week placement to that, then basically you do the math, and it means that the 1 year actually expands to a maximum of 16 months full time. If we begin to look at the module structure now, basically the modules firstly reflect the needs of students who, we always say with this degree, are actually signing up for a pre-experience MBA type qualification. So we're looking for the kind of modules in there that you would normally expect to find on that kind of degree. On the other hand, the modules that we offer reflect the distinctive research specialisms and also the distinctive teaching strengths of Brunel University and Brunel Business School. So for all pathways, we offer entrepreneurship and business planning, which link closely together, are offered typically in the first semester, and are very, very important building blocks, we would argue, both for students who've studied business or management before, or for students maybe from other degree backgrounds who are new to the subject area. We offer financial resources management as a compulsory module, because obviously money is in the essence as far as business is concerned. We offer strategic management, which provides a broad overview of the way in which big, medium and small sized businesses are actually run, looking beyond the day-to-day operational side to the kind of strategic decisions they have to take and the thinking underpinning those strategic decisions. And the last 2 dots represent the independent piece of research which every MSc student on this degree programme is required to complete, which we call the dissertation. And linked to that, a skills module, understanding business management research, which provides an understanding and a knowledge, if you like, a toolkit that students need in order to carry out that dissertation work successfully. If you go for the placement route, you also have an additional compulsory module, which is consultancy preparation. And here we see a diagram, which you may think great and you may think, oh dear, but the purpose of actually putting the diagram there for you on screen is to say maybe it's easier to see exactly in total detail what the breakdown is of the structure of the course, the time element, autumn or spring term, and also the individual component modules that make that course up. So if we think firstly in terms of the general MSc Management pathway, which the vast majority of our students do sign up for, historically speaking, we'll see first of all, top left-hand corner, autumn term. And in terms of compulsory modules, which appear in green, we have entrepreneurship and business planning. You'll also see two orange segments which give you a choice of two elective or optional modules. And if you go to the top right-hand corner, you can see the list of 4 from which those 2 will be chosen. International marketing, organisational behaviour, the creative context module, which refers specifically to journalism, the media and broadcasting, and technology management. And that's it, that's what you have to do in autumn term. Moving on to the bottom 2 segments, we see bottom left spring term, your compulsory modules, basically strategic management and financial resources management. And this time we've got a compulsory module in green as well, which is understanding business and management research. And if you remember, that's the skills module that helps people to write the dissertation. This time we've only got 1 elective or option and the choice between the 4 orange boxes on the bottom right-hand corner, which are international business ethics and corporate governance, knowledge management, social networks and innovation, corporate branding, theory and issues, and media issues. There is 1 additional box. In fact, it is the dissertation, which appears bottom left, which I've talked to you about already. There is a second additional box, and to the left of that segment, placement, which is the additional skills module that you would be required to complete if you decided that you wanted to go along the placement route, the 14-week placement route. Now we've got our second pathway. For those of you who consider that your future is maybe in marketing or an area related to marketing, you can see there's a slightly different diagram and a slightly different set of modules. Most of the basic building blocks are the same, but you'll see the difference in autumn term is that you have 3 compulsory modules, and this time international marketing joins the other 2. That leaves you with only 1 elective or optional module choice, and you can choose between organisational behaviour, creative context and tech management. In the final term, there are no electives now, no optional choices, because you are required to basically study corporate branding theory and issues. Although obviously, again, you have the choice yes or no regarding the placement. For the next one, creative industries, we find that students who are interested in this second specialist pathway tend to be interested in a future career in the press, in journalism, in TV, in radio, maybe of course increasingly in the social media, which we all know are expanding rapidly. Structure is the same as for the first specialist module, only 1 elective, and that appears in the first term, in the autumn term, and a choice here between international marketing, organisational behaviour and tech management. You can see the new compulsory module here is creative context, which is looking at the setting, the environment, if you like, within which the press, the TV, the media in general operate, particularly in the UK. Going forward to spring term, again, no options, no electives, but media issues to do with issues which are current in terms of the business side, but also the regulation of media and the press. And for example, one of the issues that is current and is discussed there is whether the press should self-regulate or should be regulated by some kind of outside body, possibly with a statutory function, in other words, with legal backing to the decisions that it takes. The final way, if you like, the final pathway, specialist pathway, is technology and innovation management. We can see that the principles are the same as before, pretty straightforward really. 3 required modules in autumn term, including tech management, which is compulsory if you choose this pathway. 1 elective taken from international marketing, org behaviour and creative context. In spring term, no electives. You've chosen a pathway, therefore that final box is filled in for you, bottom left, because you have to take knowledge management, social networks and innovation. Now, I do hope I haven't swamped you with too much detail there, But we find, for example, that when students arrive on the programme for the first time in the autumn or in early spring, they do find that kind of detailed explanation useful in terms of what they're signing up for and the choices that they've got available to them. Yes. Another picture of the campus, which I think we've seen before. I'll say a little bit about the placement for you, because students who are interested in applying like yourselves often ask about it in detail. I've already mentioned its duration. It's 14 weeks in duration. It's intended to be a full-time placement, and it lasts for those 14 weeks, which you may think is a bit short, or you may think is a bit long. But we find it's a toe in the water experience, really, a foot in the water experience in terms of determining whether the temperature's about right for you. And you can choose that placement as an opportunity for maybe sampling any form of serious work in any organisation that takes your fancy. Or you can specialise and say, well, I really want a placement with a big business or a small business or in financial services or in the media or in marketing or in maybe the pharmaceuticals industry, whatever. You can tailor it to suit your needs. And remember that you've got two potential starting points. You've got earlier in the year, immediately after you complete your taught course, which consists of 2 terms. So if you sign up, for example, for starting in September 2017, the autumn term runs until Christmas, there's then a gap, the spring term then runs until Easter. And it's after Easter, basically, when you finished all your assessments, whatever sort that they might be, submitted all your work, done with all of that, that you can then go straight onto your placement, should you wish, with a view to actually linking that placement in some way back to the work that you've done already and to your previous experience in life and academically and to your future career aspirations. Or you can wait until basically after you've handed in your dissertation and begin that placement in October. In either case, it's June, as it says on the slide that you can all see, June 2018 or October 2018, assuming that you start the degree next September. If you start the degree the following January, of course, the dates then roll forward, as you might imagine, but the principles are the same. So to get to applying what you learn, taking classroom knowledge and understanding into the work placement, and if you decide to do that, thinking possibly about linking the placement to a dissertation. In other words, you might want to negotiate a research project with your line manager, which delivers a report that's useful to them, to your host employer, while at the same time linking it back to the literature and carrying out a primary research-driven piece of investigation. The benefits, of course, being that you then are operating within the organisation and have privileged access, if your line manager signs up to what you have in mind, to people to interview, either one-to-one or perhaps in a focus group situation. So if you think about it, you can decide to make the placement work for you in different ways. You can totally de-link it from the dissertation, or you can link it to the dissertation if you feel there's a value to following the route that I've perhaps just suggested. We do not guarantee that everybody will pay you for your placement. Some employers will provide you with a monthly salary. Some employers will not. So it's a case of thinking carefully about what you want to achieve from the placement. And some students, for example, have gone along the paid route in the past. Some students have gone along the non-paid route. It's a very, very individual matter. International students, should you be listening to this webinar from abroad, indeed from outside of the EU member states, remember that Britain is an EU member state until March 2019, basically you're in a different position from UK nationals or EU students. For UK nationals and EU students, obviously there are no restrictions on your ability to work the placement period full time. For international students, you will also be able to work full-time during the placement period, but you will need to put the necessary visa arrangements in place. Now, I am no visa expert, nor is my colleague Sharon, who's hosting this session, but if you are interested in signing up to our program, we will be happy before you sign up and also after you've signed up to offer you detailed advice from experts who understand visa matters and are allowed to give that kind of advice to people like yourself. The benefits from a placement, you can see they're listed there: to get experience, to up your skills, to develop your professional network, try out a career in banking or marketing or high technology or the social media or whatever it might be, to maximize your employment opportunities. And sometimes, we don't promise, but it happens from time to time, that your employer likes you so much as a placement student to say, gosh, you're becoming really invaluable to this organisation. Can I offer you a permanent post? Or I can't, but maybe one of my contacts through my network can offer you a permanent post. Would you like to go and talk to them? As I say, we don't promise, we can't promise, we won't promise, but this does happen from time to time. So you can see there are many potential attractions there. We don't just expect students to find their own placement, to do everything themselves. But what we do is to offer expert help from a group of human resources professionals based in the Brunel Professional Development Centre, which, let's blow our own trumpet for once, is an award-winning organisation and an award-winning group of colleagues. And what they do is they help students who decide to go along that route to prepare and apply for placements. They help them to find jobs. They help them to develop their CVs or resumes. They help them to develop cover letters, application skills, interview skills. They help them to deal with any offers that come their way. They provide them with a huge amount of support, encouragement and practical help along the way. And that includes the boring stuff, but the important stuff of placement documentation, how to respond to a contract that's offered, how to conform with health and safety regulations, etc., etc. So don't think you're flying alone. There's a lot of support there. There's somebody there with you, hand to hand, 100%, help you right through the placement process. And obviously we'll be providing you with support and encouragement as academic staff as well. And what to do, these are the practicalities. If the placement route is for you, then what you do is you apply for the full-time course, whether it be an MSc Management or one of the specialist 3 pathways, and then you transfer to the placement route once a placement has been secured. If you happen to be an international student, we're not going to say anything about visas for now, but obviously we will help and support you as Brunel University and through the PDC team through the visa implications of placement decisions and placement commitments as well. The main points, when you do your placement, you will not be doing photocopying, you will not be making cups of tea or cups of coffee, you will not be annoying yourself or messing around. What you will be doing is a meaningful set of tasks or projects that will be relevant to the needs of your employer. And so, for example, as course leader, program director for MSc Management, I have quite a lot of contact with placement students. And just to give you a couple of recent examples, I was speaking to one young lady, actually from the subcontinent, who had good language skills and had found herself working in Berlin for an education marketing company where she was given several independent projects to do under the supervision of her line manager, but only insofar as she had any questions to ask. Otherwise, she was able to manage those projects with total discretion. And she found her 14-week period rewarding because those projects varied in terms of the country that she was dealing with, in terms of the type of student she was dealing with, and in terms of the actual day-to-day tasks she was carrying out. Another gentleman on a placement program was actually working in the cyber security field. So you can see that this is very modern, very high tech, but only if you want it to be. You know, if marketing or cyber security are not your thing, then you could maybe find yourself working in a car factory, or you could find yourself working in financial services, or you could find yourself working in car or van rental. It's entirely up to you. And I make the point, and I'm sorry if I've repeated it several times, not all businesses are the same. So if you think you'll get more from a placement working with a smaller business, maybe that's true in the sense that perhaps you get to see more functions and to be involved in more functional areas. So for example, in your 14 weeks, you might get a flavour of marketing, you might get a flavour of finance, you might get a flavour of HR. If you go for a bigger business, you're likely to find yourself in more of a specialised department where you tend to be operating within the marketing area and maybe within that in the branding area or whatever for all of the time. But as I say, it's up to you. You choose the placement or not, and nobody's twisting your arm and forcing you to do it. And secondly, if you do choose it, you can customise it to suit you as a okay, so we're moving towards wrapping it up. I've talked already about linking your placement to your dissertation. It says on the final slide, yeah, what do you have to do when you finish your placement? Well, two things. What it doesn't say there is you have to write a brief report explaining what the placement consisted of and explaining also in what way it enhanced your skill sets and linked back to your MSc programme and the skills that you acquired through attending classes and completing assessments. The other thing you have to do is, like this has obviously been, produce and talk to a short PowerPoint presentation explaining those elements in a shorter, punchier format. So I hope you found that interesting. And we're seeing the campus again. We obviously like the look of our campus, and we hope you do too. Basically, I've spent 6 years here now, and I've found it a very pleasant place in which to work, not only because it's a stimulating academic environment, but you'll find it a friendly campus with lots and lots of facilities close to hand. And that's a big contrast from the sort of experience you'd find, for example, if you decided to study at a central London university. Like us, many of them are good. But on the other hand, you would find that you would move out of the teaching block straight onto the street. And that street outside might contain buses, cars, trucks. And to go to another lecture or to go to your accommodation, maybe you'd have to use the tube rather than going to a different part of the campus. So if you think about it, those are maybe attractive features that you might want to consider if you're deciding possibly to study here. Thank you very much indeed. There's another view of the campus, looking down the shady walkway with student union buildings on one side and library buildings on another, and typical students talking to other students or just walking around. You can see it's a leafy environment and a pretty attractive environment in which to be. And obviously the campus element means that everything is to hand. And because of that, it's maybe a little bit easier to form work groups, social groups, and maybe post-university networks with other students, because many of you are going to be on campus together. Thank you for listening. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Graham. I had one question. It was really about, could you talk about any maths skills that you'll be using on the programme, and would they need to have anything, would they need to consider anything particular in that regard? Some people are a bit shy of maths and haven't done maths for a long time.
There are two areas, thank you Sharon for the question, there are two areas that come to mind with maths. Firstly, to allay your fears. This is not a quantum physics degree. As such, we are not talking about higher level mathematics. We are not talking about differential calculus. We are not talking about sophisticated manually based linear programming. We're not talking even about the necessity to have computer programming, software programming skills, none of that. But obviously we would expect all of our applicants and indeed all of our students to have a decent level of numeracy. And the ways in which that numeracy would be challenged, well, firstly, there is a financial management program, which, as you just seen a few minutes ago, is part of the module structure. And there we would be asking students to work with simple accounting models, where the mathematical skills you're talking about are purely applied arithmetic, logic, and common sense. Secondly, if you decide to research your dissertation in particular ways, one of those directions can involve gathering numbers. So if you analyse those numbers to generate your findings, we'd expect you to make use of a simple statistical package such as SPSS, but don't be afraid. If you do come here, if you do decide to follow that route for your dissertation, firstly, it's an on-screen package with lots and lots of help, information that you can follow as you go along. And secondly, for those of you who might not have used it before, we do actually have training sessions, which are pretty user-friendly. So no, don't feel that that's a worry of any sort. There's maths there, but it's only maths that you'd encounter in business. And I would doubt that any of you would find that very challenging.
I've got another question that I get asked quite a lot when I go to events is, for people who haven't studied business, can you just talk about the bachelor's degree subject, what you wouldn't consider as suitable and what you'd be pleased to see on the application?
Sure. Clearly, if you've got a background in business studies, management studies, economics, or any cognate, as we call it, in other words, any related discipline, you've got an advantage if you sign up for this program or any other program at master's level, which is business or management related, because you've probably come across business studies before, you've probably come across finance before, you've probably come across marketing before, etc. All that's fairly obvious, isn't it? It's going to be a little bit more challenging for those of you who might be lawyers, or those of you who might be sociologists, or those of you who followed those kind of related, but not as closely related, social science programs at undergraduate level. We don't discourage students who are a little bit more like distant cousins rather than brothers or sisters in terms of their links to management disciplines. But clearly, we've all got to be mature about this, and it's important to realise that there will be a steeper learning curve as your undergraduate experience becomes more and more distant. We are happy to look at students, you may be from an engineering background, for example, because if you think about it, there are logical skills, there are skills in terms of conceptualizing theory, in terms of applying theory, in terms of problem solving, and the kind of mental approach, the methodical approach, the structured approach, the reasoning approach, which I would argue would stand you in very, very good stead if you were to take on board this degree. But clearly, as you go to engineering and you go further afield to disciplines like history, archaeology, political science, whatever it might be, the natural sciences, many students who come to us from those kind of backgrounds would treat MSc Management as a conversion course. In other words, taking the knowledge, the intellectual skills, the experience that they've had, but saying, and now I want to go into management, or I want to go into business. And I would argue that probably that latter element is something to keep closely in your mind. What do you want to do with it? Is there a sense of doing that program? So that's a question Sharon hasn't asked, which is what do our successful graduates do next? you'll find that most of them will go into business, will go on to management. And for example, you probably know that many British businesses, many mainland European businesses, many other businesses throughout the world offer carefully structured graduate or postgraduate management training programs. And you'll find that quite a lot of our alumni, as we call them, our past students, have actually gone on to those sort of programs after the degree has finished. If you're thinking, well, what if I decide to go back into academia, into university, and maybe think about a PhD or a higher degree of some description? We have experience of past students doing that as well. As wearing a different hat, I'm actually supervising such a student as one of my PhD students at the moment, and he's doing pretty well, in actual fact. But I think the point is you customize the degree, firstly by choosing the pathway, secondly by choosing the placement or not, and then thirdly by deciding what you're going to do with it. So the answer is you can do many things with it, and we're very happy to look at students from different backgrounds in terms of offering them places.
Thank you very much, Graham. I'm sure our listeners will be very pleased with the information that you've provided for us about the degree. So thank you very much for joining us, and we do hope to get this as a recording available shortly on the YouTube channel, which will be available on our website, so do look out for that. So thank you very much.